Okay, good evening. It is 5 p.m. on February 7th. I'd like to call the regular board meeting to order. Lisa Glidden is here. Tom Chiappa.
Here.
Pamela Dowd.
Here.
Jim McKenzie.
Here.
Sean Onmacht.
Here.
Heidi Sweeney.
Here.
Dave Crisafulli.
Here.
And Maura Dempsey. Okay, let's please stand for the pledge. Okay, so we have one person who has signed up for the floor to the public this evening. So the Oswego City School District's Board of Education welcomes public comment at this portion of the meeting. To maintain an orderly and efficient meeting, we've established the following guidelines. Each speaker is permitted 3 minutes for their comments. Speakers may not yield their time to others. All comments must be directed to the board president. The board will listen to comments and input, but will not necessarily debate or discuss items. Operational matters will be directed to school administration for handling. The board is not permitted to address personnel or individual student matters in open session. The board will limit repetitive comments in order to give time to others. That's not an issue tonight. The board president has the authority to end a speaker's comments or close public comment as appropriate. Any additional written correspondence or letters may be directed to the board clerk for distribution to the board. And the board expects proper decorum at all times. Mr. Ekman?
Jim Ekman, 113 County Route 1A, Oswego, New York. I'm back. I'm a supporter of all the athletics. So I had this jacket made for me and my wife as a Christmas present, honoring my 2 boys and the sports that they're in. Of all these sports, there is one that I had genuine concerns and issues with. I brought that to the attention of the AD, which I've talked about this in several of the meetings. I met with the superintendent, and I've discussed this with 3 different personnel managers in a year's period. In less than a week, it will be a year ago, I started this venture. Don't think I've accomplished anything. In all the meetings I've attended and everything that's gone on, of the 13 or 14 things I brought up, 1 thing has been addressed. I know nothing else. Nobody's communicated to me, and I haven't seen anything that's any different. I asked repeatedly, what's going on? What's the status? The comment that I get, oh, we're not at liberty to say. Or it's in the executive meeting. It's like a club that nobody can attend but the members. I've requested several meetings with the AD, the new AD, to share this information. I have it in a PowerPoint presentation. Very logical, very orderly, very detailed, very documented. Everything in there can be backed up. I've got attached emails. When I had the meeting with the superintendent and the personnel director, it was a 7-page agenda, had 19 attachments, and lasted for an hour. Promises were made, most of those were never fulfilled. That's what started bringing me to these meetings, because nothing was moving. And the advantage that I have is this one sport that I'm complaining about, I was there. I was working with the coach at the practices and all these meets and saw stuff that I'm trying to share with everybody. Somebody needs to pay attention. Nobody seems to be bothered with it. One thing that I want, how much time have I got? 26 seconds. I'll go fast. I am personally, after all my experiences and things that I've gone through, happy to see him leave. I have no issue with that at all. I am hoping that we're going to get someone in here that can make some stuff happen. Okay. That's what I'm looking forward to. So, my recommendation to the board is if you're doing the interviews and you're hiring these people, go online and check them out in addition to what that resume says. because when I went online after my experiences,
Okay,
I found out a lot of
we are
stuff.
finished here. Thank you. And Mr. Ekman, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate that you've come. As I sent to you, it's not that you haven't gotten a response, you just haven't gotten the response that you'd like. And I realize those are two different things. I've explained to you what the personnel process is, how coaches are assessed. You have the contract language. We have an athletic director who's going to be going through her evaluations this year. And we will let her evaluate the coaches. Things don't happen immediately. We're
It's been a
operating under
year.
contracts.
It's been a year.
Right, I recognize. Thank you for your time. Okay, so our first order of business tonight is the superintendent's report. Were you ready for the presentation? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, board. Good to see everybody back. We'll go ahead and get started. I'd like to start as we normally do with children. We've got some really great things that have been happening with our students that we'd like to share. First, I want to congratulate and tell our students from KPS, job well done. We have some students from our student council. The members of the group recently made some wonderful cards and hand-delivered them to Bishop's Commons. And, you know, with the dreary weather that's going on, they just thought it'd be a perfect way to go out and brighten up somebody's day. And so just wanted to say job well done to our students from KPS. And in addition to them, we've got some really great things happening in terms of reading. We have parents who have been a part of our reading initiative over at Frederick Layton School. Recently we had a day where parents came in and just spent the day reading to their children in school, enjoyed a snack along with the kids, and just a really wonderful day to see parents coming in and spending some time with their kids and helping us with the work that we're doing around reading. Lastly, I just wanted to congratulate in advance our students who are busy preparing for this upcoming year's musical Cinderella. It'll be happening on February 10th and 11th this weekend at 7 p.m. and then also on the 12th at 2 p.m. I got to tell you, it's going to be a fantastic show. Our kids are really preparing. And we are excited about the great work they're doing. I think, can we give all of our students a great round of applause, and our parents? I want to thank them. I want to thank them for their work, their efforts in advance. We certainly appreciate it. So just wanted to share with the board a couple of things. We have just learned that all school districts have just learned that because of ESSER and ARP funding regulations, that we do have to make sure that we are, sharing any updates to our reopening plan. So over the summertime, all schools learned that schools would be reopened like full scale. We weren't told by the governor's office or the Department of Health that we had to have a reopening plan, but we have been told by ESSER and ARP folks that we do need to have one. So we just wanted to share with you some of the things that we have in our plan. Of course, you know that now schools open pretty much as normal. So that's kind of the most part, but there are a couple things we just wanted to make sure we shared with you. So Nancy and Dr. Humphreys are going to help us out a little bit here, but just first right out the gate, the school district, school districts that received ARP and ESSER fundings, they are required again to review reopening plans. The information we learned is now every 6 months. We need to do that. And then the 2020, 2021, and 2021-22 plans, but just so folks know, they're already on our website. So people can see how we've actually evolved, basically, from where we were. The purpose is that reopening plans were created as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Schools did not have written guidance back in 2019 when everything started. And so there was guidance needed on how to pivot from in-school instruction to remote instruction, and they did not have a documented method of communication to stakeholders. So that's where these plans kind of evolved and came out of. So we do have some updates, and we'll kind of go through them. So Nancy and Dr. Humphrey, if you want to kind of just share, we have the page numbers and then updates, okay?
Certainly. So we did review the plan. All of the departments, Dr. Coven got together at the beginning of the year to look at the reopening plan to make sure that we had reviewed it and had any changes. Some of the changes are included as follows. On the page 26, there was a listing of everyone who participated. There was just a title change for the Executive Director of Special Education. On page 54, there was a language change to read, if there is a resurgence of COVID-19, the district will adhere to spacing guidance provided by the CDC and County Health Department. Anywhere where possible, we generalized it if we knew that some things were changing in the plan. Attendance and chronic absenteeism on page 72, language was added to say the expectation in the Oswego City School District is that each child in K-12 will attend school daily, and should the district have to utilize virtual instruction, it will continue to use Google Classroom and Google Meets for instruction. And in Google Classroom, teachers will take attendance when students log on. It also goes on to talk about the faculty and staff will ensure daily interaction, remote instruction, online participation, phone calls, emails, and other activities with students, and attendance policies will remain in place. And then if a student fails to attend 2 consecutive instructional days, the tutor assigned to the student will follow up with the family. On page 73, teaching and learning, again, a language change to include that we would provide instruction for students 5 days a week in person or virtually. On page 75 and 76, again, language changes for special education. The first one is for virtual students who are able to access the programs with curriculum, they would be able to do so, and that the district would work with the families and the student's physician to make sure that this was appropriate, and that in the event of a district closure, the district would utilize remote or virtual instruction to provide special ed services and supports. Also went on to say students placed externally in BOCES or any of our residential programs will receive support and services in accordance with the school's reopening plan, and students supported through non-public schools will receive in-person instruction. On page 78 of the plan for technology, it references that a technology help desk was created along with a phone number for parents and students to access that help desk. On page 79, bilingual education and languages, there was a language change for the addition of Parent Square to allow parents and guardians to select default language preferences. And on page 80 and 81, again, information was added.
And here's the things that we would do. Any questions for the board, or is everybody okay? Okay. All right. So now we want to just kind of shift gears. There's some items we wanted to talk to the board a little bit about tonight in terms of our budget. So we're trying to put the final, touches on the budget as much as we can here, but there were some things we just wanted to kind of go through to see where the Board of Education was as we kind of moved along. First, again, our goals are to make sure that we're fiscally sound, not excessive to our taxpayers, that the budget is flexible, providing for flexibility within budget codes, that it's foolproof, providing for any emergency should they occur. And sometimes emergencies, things just come up in schools. That the budget is flowing, that it has enough cash flow available in case state aid is withheld, and then that it's aligned with the district's strategic plan and considers long-term perspective. So since our last meeting, the governor's proposed budget was released. Governor Hochul did share in her budget, in the executive budget that is, that there would, if everything works out and everything gets voted on by the legislature, she'd like to see a 10% increase in aid to public schools. The final budget, legislative budget portion there, should be adopted, we hope, by April the 1st. So this is her first budget, full-time on her own, so hopefully people will pass the budget on time. We'll see how that goes, basically. The budget, we do know, will fully fund foundation aid to schools for the 2021 court settlement, NYSER versus New York State. So this is the last year of that full funding. So districts just kind of need to know that after this year, things will go back to how they were basically several years ago. So the level of funding, in our case this year, I think there's an additional 7 million or plus, so it's about 15 million, right? But everything next year, after this year is over, should return to kind of where it was with funding several years ago. So folks just kind of need to be aware of that. Additionally, just so people are aware in terms of the budget, the governor proposed a $250 million allotment for tutors. It's called the Foundation Aid / High Impact Tutoring Set Aside. To address, this is supposed to address learning gaps in grades 3 through 8, particularly in math across the state. Now, as a set aside within the district's foundation aid increases, the executive budget dedicates $250.02 million to support the establishment of the high impact tutoring programs for 23-24. So just so folks understand, this extra money, like for this tutoring, it's included actually in the foundation aid that you got. So, you know, it says, hey, we got a raise in the foundation aid, but really, this extra is just included in your foundation aid, okay? Districts must use these funds to provide small group or individual tutoring to students in grades 3 through 8 with a focus on reading and math. So we have ARP and ESSER that's coming off in the next upcoming year. So I think this is like the governor's way to try to still put something in there, you know, but it's kind of like it's your foundation aid, but they're having you use your aid to do the tutoring. So it's not really extra, right? But that's kind of what's there. Sure.
So, and is it clear, is that tutoring, that's in class or during the school day tutoring, or is this after school?
So to be
tutoring?
determined, good question,
Okay.
we're wondering. We think they're talking about like after school, but we don't know. So we're one of those questions that'll be hopefully answered in the next couple of weeks. Right? And then we know that the tutoring sessions will need to be held at least twice a week for a duration of no longer than 30 minutes, basically. Okay? No less than 30 minutes, yeah. So in the executive budget's proposal, you know, that includes a number of things for us, everything from foundation aids to BOCES aid, high cost, transportation, software, hardware, private access aid, and building aid. So Nancy, you want to go through each of these categories and what we see in terms of increase?
Certainly. So foundation aid is projected to go up $7,891,714, or a change of 28%. As Dr. Calvin said previously, most districts are getting up to a 10% increase. We're seeing a lot more than that because of the fiscal equity lawsuit. BOCES aid is projected to go up $1,547,574, or a 34% increase. BOCES aid is based on what every coaster that we participate in, and that has gone up in some areas, and we have added some things in BOCES, which is aidable. High-cost excess cost aid is increasing $673,332. High-cost excess aid is for special education students within our district boundaries. Private excess cost is projected to go up $17,643. Private excess cost is for our students with disabilities that are in private placement. Hardware and technology is flat. Software, library, and textbook is going down $2,003, mainly because our decreasing enrollment, it's by per student, we get an allocation. Transportation aid is projected to go up $290,278, and building aid is projected to go up $4,488,149. And what you need to remember is that the building aid is used to offset our debt service. We've closed out some projects, I think phase 1 and 2 of the capital project, and that's why you're seeing the increase in building aid. UPK I have as a separate line. State aid usually includes those numbers in the totality of our runs, but really UPK is a federal fund, so it does not affect the general fund, so I always back that out. And we are seeing an increase of $424,787 in that. Overall, with the UPK, the district is projecting at this point to receive an additional $15,331,474. And I just want the board to understand that these numbers can change.
Yes, yeah. They can go up or they can go down. It depends on what happens with the legislature. So just a couple things. With the BOCES aid, you see that number going up. That's a good thing, right? That's around efficiencies. So we know the more you use your BOCES services, the more that gets you aid. It's highly aided. So if there's services or supports moving forward that the district could utilize that could be done through BOCES, it's a really good thing, right? So that's a plus there to see that going up by 34%. And then, so this year again, this is kind of this is it. This is the last year where the state says, okay, we've settled this lawsuit, right? So what the expectation is that moving forward, you could see this number it should go drastically down, right? It won't be the extra, 7 million plus another 7 million next year. So whatever the board chooses to do, you just kind of want to keep that in mind. There's a lot of needs and things across the district. I just think, there's infrastructure needs, there's learning needs, there's all kinds of programmatic needs. And with some of the changes that are coming after next year, we just want to keep in mind that this is a time to kind of think about that 15 million and think about it closely. One of the things that also, this year that as we kind of pull the last pieces together with the budget, the board may want to think about is, okay, are you okay with raising your taxes or do you want to keep them the same? What do you want to do? But you just, again, I want to keep in mind the long-term kind of things. Some of the things that we heard from our study certainly are really important things. Our building condition surveys, a number of those things are out there that we kind of want to just think about moving forward. Okay?
May I ask a couple
Sure.
questions? So just to clarify a few things. On the foundation aid, we have gone up this year, and as due to that lawsuit, because they weren't paying as much as we should.
Right.
Right, it's gone up. My understanding from previous conversations is that it was going to plateau. So the amount that went up each year, it's not going to go up 7 mil anymore.
Right.
But that total amount of aid will plateau. So we're not going to see a reduction of aid, but we'll see a continuous level.
Well, what we've heard, and if you'll go back to what Dr. Timms shared with us, so the term that people are using is not plateau. The term they're using is fiscal cliff, right? So remember when he was talking about the fiscal cliff? That we
Yeah,
need to
that's
be
exactly
prepared for?
where I came up with the plateau.
Yeah, so the aid will so it's been up here, and then it went up even higher here. Now what's going to happen is you're going to see it coming back down to its normal level because they gave us everything that we should have had. So you're going to see it go significantly down. How much that number is, how much it goes down, don't really know yet, right? We'll have to wait to see what projections come out from like our Questar BOCES, who kind of puts an eye out there for this stuff. But when you say plateau normally people kind of mean like stay right at that high level that it is now. We know that probably won't take place. What we're hearing, the term we're hearing is fiscal cliff. Prepare for your fiscal cliff. And why? Because ESSER, ARP, both of those will be gone, and now your aid, you would have gotten all of what you were due extra back, so now you're going to go back to kind of your regular aid rate.
Right, so I guess I was eliminating the ESSER and the ARP. And I do remember, I can go back and watch that video, but it was my understanding that the foundation aid wasn't what it should be, and they were finally going to get it to where it should, which means then that's where it should be, and it'll stay level as opposed to increase because they were deficient before.
I mean, you're correct with that, but keeping in mind, so the 7 million plus the 7 million we got this year, that has extra give back. I think we're saying the same thing, but maybe I'm just saying
Okay.
it differently. Yes, exactly. Right.
Okay, so we not only got what we should, we got back pay?
Correct.
So New York State was underfunding rural school districts since this lawsuit goes
Sure,
back to the 90s.
I just didn't realize from our previous conversations that part of that included a back pay. I thought it was just bringing up to the levels that we should be.
Yeah.
But
Nancy, you wanted to say something?
No, and it's amounts that they owed us because we were so underfunded for so many years. And then what's going to happen going forward is now that the formula is running again, we'll just get our regular amount of aid based on our combined wealth ratio to say how poor we are and the number of students. So there's a lot that goes into the formula calculation. And that's the way, so as long as the formula is running, it's all going to be put through, and we'll be getting the aid that we have for our population.
Okay, so is that a formula in which we could actually try to predict something for the future?
So the formula, it's kind of convoluted. There's like a group of people in Albany who kind of knows the formula. Many of us, we've been asking, can you tell us what's all in the formula? It's hard to get that information, but the best way we can predict, there is a group that does this through Questar, BOCES, that can certainly help us with some of that. And Nancy, you want to say something? Go ahead.
I do, so I think, did you send out the runs to the board? They're available publicly, and in the first 10 pages of the runs, it actually says how they're calculated. Each of the revenue streams are calculated. And I have to say that I think I'm a fairly smart person. I don't understand the formula for foundation aid.
Sure. Okay, so my second question was on the building aid, just to make sure I'm clear on this. When we had the 2018 capital project, we closed out phase 1, 2. When the project was proposed to the public, there was something like a number of 88% would be state funded. I don't know what that number is, but that a good proportion of that would be aided. When we say we're going to have an additional 4.48 mil come in, is that the aid that we were talking, that was referred to? Is this the aid from phase 1 and phase 2 that the state is reimbursing us for that project?
When you see additional building aid come in a particular year, it's for any of the projects that we've closed out in those years. So we closed out phase 1, we closed out phase 2, and it could be, did we bond? There are a lot of factors involved in building aid. The same thing, it's like a 2-page explanation of how building aid is calculated. And it also contains all of the other building projects that we're getting aid on that could be back for 15 years.
Sure. Okay. So if this is coming back, so this was a capital project that was approved by the voters. We collected tax money, we did some from capital reserve, we pulled money in, and so some of the state aid's coming back in. I would just ask that we as a board, that we start thinking about some of these numbers for other facilities, projects that need to be spent on, things that come up that we really need to take care of infrastructure. You know, I spoke when we did our last amount of reserves and asked that we put it in capital. I was in the minority. But as I look at this, this seems like a good amount of money that was specifically started as capital and that is being refunded as capital. And I would like us to try to think about using it as capital, whether it go to the capital reserve or whether it go into, which is nice because it's funded, right? Aided, I should say, or whether we just straight up pay for stuff because we need certain infrastructure done. I would just like us to think about that as a group, please.
Actually, I have one other question for you, Nancy. When this building, so this is our budgeted aid we're expecting to come back for the whole year. When is it that New York gives it to us?
It comes in stages.
Okay,
So
when
there
they
are-
feel like it, basically.
No.
Or
It's-
on,
it's-
I mean,
no,
that's
they
the
feel
way
like it.
SUNY is funded. It's when
No,
it comes.
All of the aid comes
Okay.
in on specific, a timeline.
Right.
Okay, so then to Jim's point, by the end of next academic year, maybe we would say, we would have expected that we have 4 million to put someplace.
There is also a document the fiscal advisors have put together, like that kind of shows you when to expect certain aids to come in, and maybe we can check to get that as well. That'll help you to see when things are expected to come through. Basically, now keep in mind, at any time, if there's a state whatever issue, they always have the right to withhold.
Withhold, yeah.
Generally, they work with you, but just want to keep that in mind. You wanna
Right,
say something?
and the purpose of the building aid is to offset any debt that we've incurred. Right, so it's to be used to fund any of our principal and interest on our debt service. So that's why it's built into the budget, so then we can offset those costs so that all we're paying for is the local share.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so you're welcome. Some additional budgetary considerations. So again, The funding for our ESSER 2 expires 9/30/23. The district received $3.9 million in funding over the last 3 years for that grant period. Funds were allocated to support students who, live in poverty, our ELL student population, homeless students, purchases for educational technology, mental health services for students, and summer programming that that's been addressing learning loss. Okay. So I want to kind of think about that. There was also some positions that were in that we have some time here left, but not this year, but the following year, we want to think about these positions, okay? So the homeschool liaison, we got 3 instructional coaches, the substitutes for those instructional coaches for reading, first grade teacher, there's 2 of them, AAS teachers, there's 2, and then AP Honor Lab support system. So we have another year for funding for these spots, but after this year, you want to keep this in mind because those spots, our goal is hopefully that a lot of these things through attrition, right, would be able to kind of just, balance themselves out, provided that that we use the attrition model, right? When someone goes, we evaluate whether or not we need a position or not. If we don't need it, we don't hire it back. If we do need it, then we kind of go from there. Okay. Some other things that we want to think about in terms of requests. So we had a couple different requests that we just want the board to kind of think about as we're trying to pull together the final pieces of the budget. So first of all, we have, there was a request around additional teaching, getting some additional teachers. I believe it was at the elementary level. That was a Board of Ed discussion piece that came up. So, we have looked at the staffing structure. My feeling is at this point in time, I would not recommend additional staffing. We do know that in many areas, especially at the secondary level, we're overstaffed. So I would probably just wait to see what happens in the summertime in terms of enrollment, and we kind of go from there. We certainly always want to be careful because, you try to vote for, you do your best guesstimate, and you never know who's coming through, who isn't coming through at the beginning of the year. But based on what we saw in the study, based on our conversations, and what we see now, my recommendation is that you hold off for right now to see, what would need to be done. I would not recommend additional staffing at this point in time. That's just my thought. And certainly we can talk through each of these items. The second one is around STEM programming. We have had some requests around STEM programming. Our administrative folks we've had some conversations about it, and there are some things that I think that we could actually absolutely do for the next school year. We do want to get started with science, technology, engineering, and mathematics programming for our students. So what the request right now look like is trying to do some of this through some of our extracurricular activities. So we'd like to bring back a robotics club back to the high school. We'd like to try to do some esports. It is a really great program that a number of our districts in our county and outside of the county is being involved in right now. And then at the elementary level, we'd like to try some Project Lead the Way programs. We've had that before in our district at the secondary level. We haven't really had it before at the elementary level. But there's some really great exercises, activities, and events that kids can be a part of that involve science and technology. And we'd like to at least try to see how it goes, after school. So the cost right now is $8,500. The robotics program is $10K, esports $10K, and by the way, those can all be aided. So total cost is about $35,000 and you can get them aided. So I would recommend, if at all possible, that the board considers allowing that to happen for the kids. I think it would be great, and it's a start to move us in that STEM direction, okay? And then the goal is hopefully we can move it from after-school kinds of things to, some of these things like Project Lead the Way, if there's a way to bring it into the science, instruction during the regular day, that might be a good opportunity. So that's one to think about. Let me go to a couple others, and then I'll come back up here. The 5-hour typist increase. So in all of our schools, we have a 5-hour typist, and we have a full-time a person here at the school working in the offices. The full-time person is there for the full day, but at a certain time, that 5-hour typist leaves, and then phone calls are coming through, kids are being picked up. It's extremely busy, I'll be honest with you. So we have to pull in other aides or assistants to try to help, which leaves us a little bit short in some of the classrooms. So the elementary principals have talked with me and Nancy about this and said, hey, listen, is there a way we can just make those people full-time rather than 5 hours, those who'd like to go over. The increased cost for the district is about $50K to do that. Just standing back and watching what's happening in the offices, I would recommend that the board consider thinking about that, because it's a bit overload, to be quite frank, in the afternoons for that one person who's trying to work through that last hour and a half of the school day. That's when it takes off. And dismissal has a whole life of its own, to be quite frank. Okay. We had a request around a head bus driver. So we've had just Tom basically running the transportation department. And it's he needs some relief and needs some support to help with the number of routes and drivers. And when he's out, basically it's going to some other folks who are doing some out of title work to help keep things going. And we've kind of been doing this for quite some time. But what he'd like to is, if at all possible, to get an assistant. And under the title of a head bus driver, they can actually assist. There are a number of districts who actually use a head bus driver as their person who runs the transportation portion. So it is something that has been requested. When you look at the operational need in the department, we have a mid-size, I would say, good size fleet that does need some extra help and some extra attention. So we do recommend this, but I wanted to tell you that came up. Nancy, did I miss anything on that at all, that request?
Only that there are a lot of changes in the requirements in transportation in terms of reporting. SED has now gone paperless in terms of transportation, and everybody would think, well, that's a wonderful idea, and it's going to be so easy. It has put a lot more work on transportation supervisors in order to get this information into the portal in a timely fashion. And there are also some new requirements for testing and training of bus drivers that Tom has to do, 19A training and things like that, that really there is, the job really has to be split up so that more people can assist with that, and Tom can do other things. He is out every day, most of the time, taking a shift in driving when he really should be in the office.
My understanding is also there'll be some more help needed around the training. I think the person who's doing most of the training is now getting ready to, am I correct, leave? Well, possibly leave.
Possibly
And so there's a need to do the backup with the training, and all of the drivers there's multiple trainings that have to be done throughout the year. So if that might be something to consider, we would recommend doing so. Security staffing for all schools. So there were some questions or concerns around that. So when we kind of have gone through and looked at all the schools, Amanda as the person in charge of the security, and we've really literally gone through, talked with all the principals, looked to see what's happening. What we can see is that at the middle school and the high school, we think that those areas will that's where we think there's a big bunch of security kind of needed. I think at the high school, we could use one additional SRO to help and support. So for a total of 3 SROs. So that would be 2 here, 1 at the middle school. If one of the elementaries needed some extra help or needed some extra assistance for anything, you can always call that 3rd SRO. They can go and travel to whichever the place is to help and to support. We did talk with our elementary principals at great length to see what their needs were. So here's what we're thinking. We don't know that we need SROs in every building, security people in every building. What we feel is needed really in the schools are some additional behaviorists to help with de-escalation strategies, supporting students who are going through some of those behavioral difficulties. We know that we really need some people who are skilled at the behavioral piece to also help and support the staff with learning how to de-escalate students and get them back to class when there are challenges. Because of the pandemic, some of our challenges with some of our kids have been exasperated, right? There's more challenges than what we've probably seen before. And there are some children in our district, many children in our district, who really have experienced true traumas in the household. And so what we are hearing is, and I have to agree that what we need is if we can get some additional behaviorists and also some social workers, right? So we've got 2 right now, but 2, it just isn't enough. It's not meeting the needs of the district. You know, we have a pretty large middle school, pretty large high school, and then we've got 5 other elementary schools, and we've got, you know, 3,650 families that 2 social workers, there's no way that they can get to even, you know, a fourth of those families. They're doing really well, but they're really struggling. And so some of the issues that are coming to school are issues that are happening in the household. If we had proper supports for those families and structures, they're attached to agencies or entities, it might, we believe it would bring down some of the behaviors that we are seeing that are coming to school. We literally have some, you know, we have some families where children are still, there are true food inequities in households. But that social worker in place can help to address that issue and bring those kinds of issues, on those behavioral things that we're seeing. It looks like just behavior that's, you know, just bad behavior, but it's much deeper. It's much more. Our thought would be that we consider an increase in behaviorists and maybe an additional social worker or 2. I think that would be more of what's needed. And our principals at the elementary level are loud and clear, and they're telling us we really don't need, you know, a security person there. We really need to have, you know, access to a person if something goes wrong. But what we need are these things here to help us in our schools. Okay, so I wanted to share that with you. The last item on the list is the tax exemption for seniors. Lots of conversations around this. No decision needed tonight, but by March 1st, there is a, you know, a decision that would need to be made. And this is around raising the maximum income threshold to $50K for seniors so that seniors can continue to get their exemption. There is an exemption that is available to senior citizens with their taxes. There's also an exemption, I believe it's fire department, if I remember correctly. Is it fire workers that also can get an exemption too? Am I correct, Nancy? Volunteer, right? So there's, you know, there's an exemption that folks can get. This one here is involving seniors, and so boards are talking about it because it's kind of up there. There's some changes that's out there with it, and people kind of boards need to think about whether or not they want to offer that. Now, the one thing with the exemption is with any exemption. So when we reduce the price for one, right, the district cost is what it is. So someone else has to take up that amount that's being lost. We respect our seniors, but it's the reality of what happens with an exemption. Nancy, did you want to add anything else to that?
So currently, we do have an exemption for seniors. I called over to the county today. They said it was between 17.9 and 27. If we wanted to, if the board chose to increase that limit of what seniors could make, they're in their purview to do that. It's on a municipality, by municipality guideline. So the county did raise theirs last year, I think to 37.6. And I don't know, he said they may be considering doing it again, but it does have to be done before the March 1st tax rolls go out, if the board was to consider it.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Nancy, I just had a question. Do we have any idea we're going from 37,000 currently to 50,000? Any, in terms of?
No,
No?
you can go to whatever level you want. You don't have to go to the $50,000
don't?
limit.
Okay.
You can say, we want to raise it $5,000 or $10,000. The board, each municipality can put that level at whatever they want. And as I said, Corey said, I think our maximum is $27,600. Anything over that, you lose the exemption. So we can, the $50,000 is the maximum. You can't go over that amount.
And right now we're at, what's the amount right now?
Corey said between 17.6 and 27.6.
And the
So-
board, yeah, and the board could just decide, you know, if you want to keep it, you can keep it and just say, hey, we'll keep it as it is, right? And then consider changes in the future. You certainly could do that as well, if you want.
Well, and I think it's not that they're completely exempt, but it's a 50% charge. I think that was that they're allowed, it's reduced by half. Whatever the assessment is reduced by half.
Right. This does not affect their STAR or their enhanced STAR. They continue to get those exemptions.
Right.
This is an additional one.
Do we have any idea demographically where we are in percentage idea? We have no idea what the impact
No
would
idea
be.
whatsoever, or how many people this would impact.
Right. Okay.
It all came about from the article that was in
Circulating Central New York.
CNY,
newspaper.
the newspaper, and
Yep, so I'll just say, so it came about very quickly. I would see if maybe we can discuss this in items from the board, because we have to make our decision by March 1st, but seniors also have to apply by March 1st. So it is.
before March 1st.
Right, I mean, it's a very quick turnaround, and this is a short month. We can talk more in discussions in items from the board, but I'm hoping we can actually talk about this tonight so that we can figure out what we want to do on it. Did you want to have anything else, Tom, that you wanted to? I'll look up really quickly the demographics of the city.
So, so just going down this list, you want to just go down and see what you are, see if you can find a consensus, or even if it's an item you just want to wait till the next board meeting? Or do you want to just think these items through and come back at the next board meeting? You have some time. We can come back at the next board meeting.
Well, I think if we come back, well, so this is why so one of the things I wanted to talk about in items from the board is that our next board meeting is actually scheduled over break. And I already know that certain board members aren't going to be able to make it. So if we talk about postponing that meeting then becomes Tuesday, February 28th. So we would miss it this year. Like, if we made the decision that night, it would just be moot for this year, because no one would be able to get it in by March 1st.
Jim has some.
If we talked about moving the meeting to next week, we could have time to deliberate and decide in time.
Right, yeah, or we can even do like a,
Not that I'm looking for 3 meetings in a row. but,
right.
you know,
Well, and it,
What we signed up for.
right, so I was thinking moving the meeting to next week might be a little, I mean, it would be a quick meeting, because I don't know that there's going to be that much going through in terms of personnel or curriculum. It might be a little bit challenging to try to get anything else beyond that on the agenda, but yeah, so let's think about it. We have a few minutes before we get to,
So if you wanted to like do a workshop, right? So it's not like a business meeting if you want, we could certainly do well, this one you'd have to say yes to. But we could certainly do like a workshop model meeting, and you could have time to vote on this. Well, and you could just talk about each of those things.
And we can talk
Gives you-
more, yes,
Yeah, it
that's
gives
what
you
I
a
was
week
thinking
to kind of
too.
think through all of those things, so you don't have to, unless you want to do it tonight, it's up to you. Or tomorrow.
Oh, if we can do it next week, I would be in support of that, because, I just had a few questions real quick so we can think about it. So the 5-hour typist, you said elementary schools. So is that for each elementary school?
Yes.
So all 5? So
All of them.
taking 5 individuals from part-time to full-time would be a total of 50,000?
That's the projected amount, yes. They-
because, Jim, they would be going from 5 hours to 7 hours, so that's 2 hours for each additional for the year.
And if the busy time is at the end of the day, is there anything contractual so as could they work the last 5 hours of the day if dismissal and that is the busiest time?
It's the last 2 hours of the day, right? So
It's the last 2 hours of the day, so they come in early,
Right.
but then they leave after 5 hours.
Right, I guess what I'm saying is if what I'm hearing is dismissal is one of the busiest time,
Right.
could they start 2 hours later and then do their 5 hours to finish the
I,
day?
I think the need is, they need 2 full-time people in the offices,
I just-
right? Whether they've been trying to stagger people here and there, but I think they just literally need 2 people in the offices at all times, because, there's so much that goes on in the buildings during the day, they just really need 2 people, right? Someone to do the phones, somebody to do kids, somebody to do parents, right? They need 2
the
people.
mornings are
That's
busy
fine.
too.
I
I was just going to say, I'm thinking the first little bit in the morning is just as hectic and chaotic as the end of the day also. At least it was several years ago when I spent more time in the
Oh, it is. It
elementaries.
still is.
They were equally
Yes.
chaotic.
And the middle of the day can be busy too
Well,
during lunchtime,
The whole day. can be busy.
but they just need 2 people.
No, just to clarify, because you had specifically mentioned
Yes.
dismissal. So in light of the idea that we will talk about some of these items in more in depth, I'll just state that the additional teaching staff, number 1 there, that was me. And I just want to clarify, I was specifically talking about K through 6, specifically our first grade cohort. So I understand that our middle and high school may not have a need for staffing, and I do understand that the certification between a middle school, high school teacher versus K through 6 is different. I was specifically referring to us focusing on those early grades and getting some of those class sizes that I think currently are high, getting them down. So I just wanted to clarify that because you spoke about the middle and high school and that.
Well, I'm speaking about all K through 12.
get
I
you.
really don't think you need additional staffing. I don't. I think our study has made it very clear to us that there are some. I don't think we need K through 12 additional staff. I really don't. But we can certainly talk more about that in the next piece and just kind of go from there. If the board would
And
like
I
to
would
proceed.
appreciate that, because I know when I brought it up last time, Heidi mentioned something that was eye-opening to me, is the idea of, right sizing. I think, Dr. Kelvin, you may have used that term of right sizing. So if we have the line's ability to look at it and go, hey, in July, August, we can right size to help this current first-year cohort without sacrificing other class size levels, that's great. I just want to make sure that's done. And if we need to plan in somebody into the budget, I'd like to do that. If you can tell me we can right size in July and August, given the numbers we have, and you could pivot later, that's good too. I just really feel like my feeling from our study is that we need to do better. So
Well,
I'll just leave it there.
we're allowed to agree that we disagree on certain things. I think our next conversation would be fine to have that, right? Okay. All right. So-
I have one question.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
About the typist. From going from 5 hours, which is part-time, do they get insurance now? And if we're adding on insurance, is that included in the 50,000?
Nancy, was the insurance included in the 50?
No, usually benefits are separate. So, and that was just a ballpark number, Dave. Right off the cuff, I didn't do the actual physical calculation. I think that 50,000 might be a little high, but I can do that calculation, and I can send it in transmittal if you want.
Okay. So it doesn't include the benefits?
It does
Doesn't
not
include-
include benefits, no.
Okay, other thoughts? So, so at your items of the board, do you want to decide about what
Yeah.
we're going to do? Okay.
Yeah.
We want to come back next week or not? Okay, all right, very good. All right, so those are the items that, for future considerations, okay? Next steps, we're going to be meeting with Mingo, Metzer, and Barr to review the New York State aid runs and also to discuss reserve suggestions. We continue to do that throughout the year, and we'll be doing that again to see what their thoughts are. We're going to continue to evaluate program needs for the curriculum department. And just so we're clear, a couple of things that are going on. The Reading League, our next year, this is the last year that we're supposed to have the Reading League. We're supposed to be doing the trainers and everything this year. So we want to keep our eye on that. School tools, we're still using school tools, and we're using it now and with more capacity. School tools is our database system that we use across the district, and certainly that will be something that we're going to continue to work on. We have a new math program that is needed. We don't currently have a math program across the district. We've been using modules, which we talked about before, are no longer even suggested by the state ed department. So we do want to keep that in mind because we're going to need a new math program. Science, so there's New York Next Generation standards across the board in all curriculum areas, but science is going to be, there'll be a big push next year. We have new science kits. They're now called investigations that will be coming out and rolling out in the next year. So there'll be some changes around there. And then we also want to keep our eye on and keep conversations going around, reviewing loss of funding for federal programs. Again, those ESSER and ARP pieces. We will continue to evaluate the needs of our staff. If there's additional things that come up, we'll share that with you before we get to the finalized budget piece. And we will continue to work on the tax cap calculation and revenue projections as they kind of come into us as well. All right, and then just two other concerns we just want to share with folks. One is around generators. We had some challenges with our generators, particularly at the Charles E. Riley campus. We had some challenges there. Really, the challenges are around they're just older and need to be replaced. We know that at least three of our campuses are probably at the immediate need for replacement in terms of generators. So those are, again, Charles E. Riley, Minetto, and Fitzhugh Park School. They have aged. We know that those generators, the cost right now estimated about $500,000 to get one. They can be aided as well. The year wait time right now is about a year. What we also know is that the remaining other schools will also, elementary schools that is, will also need some generator support as well. Costs for those generators could go up or it could go down. It's based on what you want out of those generators. Like, you want them to run the lights, if you want them to run the phones, the computers, emergency, lighting systems. It depends on what you put into the generators, right? That kind of has a lot to do with the cost for those, okay? And then we know that we have some schools that are going to have some challenges with some of our ratings through the building condition survey. So the middle school, Fitchie Park School, and KPS School, we have some cracks in the foundation at the middle school, and elevator repairs are going to be needed here in the near future. At Fitchie Park, there's some exterior walls, work, and steps that we need to work on. KPS, some exterior walls that need to be worked on as well. Those items will be identified. They're projected to be identified in the building condition survey. We will have King and King here once everything is all set, and they'll share and answer any questions that folks might need. There's some cost attached to those items. It's roughly around $1.5 million. Could be a little bit higher depending on what the needs are. And if, what the escalation looks like when this work finally gets done. Again, this project would need to be a project, can be aided for sure, and we know that there's some work that needs to be done there. Okay, wanted to share that. Any questions from the board? Good.
Mathis, I just had a question regarding the generators. In the draft that we had for the building condition survey, it had 5 generators for a total of around 1.7 million. They vary between 288. Was that 288, 300, depending on the size and the location of the school? Are these numbers with installation and engineering costs added on or no?
No. So these 3 that are here, those are, so it's 500 apiece, but no, the installation, the design, all the architecture stuff that has to go in it, that is not, those administrative costs are not included. That's why we put 1.5 plus, right? Because those others will be extra amounts to them.
Okay, so the draft then that we had, those numbers were not accurate in there? Do you?
The draft? What
Yeah,
draft are
it
you
was.
referring to?
I was from a King and a BCS draft, and I had just gone through and totaled up the numbers. So I just noticed that some were like 288, 277, depending on school and size, and the total for all 5 schools was 1.7 something, I believe. But I just wanted to make sure that
I
we were
would have
talking
to-
apples and apples. that's
Yeah,
all.
I'd have to see the draft that you're talking to, referring to, then I can make a better, I'm not sure what draft you're talking about.
Okay.
What I know is this, the 3 that were of the main concern that came from the 2011 memo, there were 3 of these that were the biggest concerns. There's really 5 concerns, but these 3 are the ones that are most concerned. Charles E. Riley is probably the bigger of all of the elementary schools. We know that the power goes out up there quite a bit. I don't know what it is, but the area has probably more power outages. David, you would know more than I would, but that area, I believe, has more power outages than probably any other elementary school. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so,
It's because of a station, a substation, plus the winds that they just hit there. And they've lost power in the past more than any other building.
so if you can share that document you're making reference to, then we'll kind of go from there. Okay?
Will do, sure.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. If there are any other questions for anybody else, are we all good? All right, we're all set. Thank you.
Okay, next up is our consent agenda. We have OHS and OMS extra classroom reports for December, district financial report, budget status report for December, projected fund balance for June, treasurer's consolidated report, claims audit reports from November and December, special education report as of today, minutes from January 17th, minutes of the emergency board meeting from January 31st, and the minutes of the policy board meeting from last night. So can I have a motion for the consent agenda A through L?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion?
Just as a point of clarification, do we normally approve minutes for committee meetings? I'm just thinking about, I'm approving minutes for a meeting I wasn't at, so I can't really speak to that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we'll have we do, so the policy committee goes, it meets We do, okay. Yeah, I mean, like, 'cause it'll be the first reading of them tonight, but
I just see you have, what's the other one?
facilities.
We don't usually.
We don't usually approve minutes.
But you do for the finance one,
Oh, we do for the finance.
audit committee.
Yeah,
look back at that.
Okay.
yeah,
I don't think it would
Yeah.
harm you if you.
yeah,
Take
right.
the committee's minutes, but I don't think it would hurt you. We could double check on that, make sure.
I mean, Pam, Heidi, and I were there. It was,
And Lisa, who's there too?
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, okay. We do have a first and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next up is for curriculum, New York State textbook law.
Good evening. For your approval, letter A under the New York State textbook law, it is for approval for textbooks for non-public schools.
Okay, is there a motion for item A?
Move it.
Thank you, Pam. Second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Tom. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next up is personnel. Bob?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Under Personnel, item A, we have administrative recommendation for resignation as presented.
Okay, is there a motion for A?
Move it.
Pam, second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, under item B, it's support staff recommendation. We have two retirements here. The first one, whereas Teresa Daddle admirably served the students and staff of the Oswego City School District as a senior account clerk typist from September 11, 2017, with full commitment to the best interest of all the students and worked in partnership with her fellow employees. That's the first one. And our second one is for Joyce Galetta, whereas Joyce Galetta admirably served the students and staff of the Oswego City School District as a senior account clerk from July 24th, 1989, with full commitment to the best interests of all the students and worked in partnership with her fellow employees. So both of those employees as presented.
Okay, is there a motion for B?
I'll move it.
Second?
Second it.
Okay, thanks, Dave and Pam. Any discussion?
Just to thank you to those wonderful ladies for their time commitment to the Oswego City School District. And I hope they thoroughly enjoyed their retirement because it is certainly well earned.
Right.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry.
Okay, Bob.
Items C through E are professional staff recommendations as presented.
Okay, C through E, professional staff recommendations. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Heidi. Second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Pam. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Okay. Items F through K are support staff recommendations as presented.
Okay, is there a motion for F through K? Support staff recommendations?
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Tom. Second?
Second it?
Thank you, Heidi. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
Okay. Item L, substitute and temporary employees as presented.
Okay, and I believe we'll have an abstention on this. Is there a motion for L, substitute and temporary employees?
Move the motion.
Thanks, Pam. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I'm an abstention due to family.
Thank you, Pam.
Okay. And items M through O are as presented.
M through O as presented. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Tom. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Pam. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Bob. Next up, we have finance.
A and B are budget transfers as presented.
Okay, A and B, budget transfers. Is there a motion?
I'll move it.
Thanks, Dave. Second?
Second.
Heidi, any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
C is a donation as presented.
Okay. Is there a motion for C?
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Tom. Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Thank you, as always, thank you for those donations to our district.
Exelon is a very good supporter, yeah. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Go ahead, Nancy.
D is to amend the current year budget for the donation that was approved at the last meeting from the home and school at Minetto for $116,678.53 as presented.
Okay, is there a motion for D, budget amendment, to account for the donation?
Move the motion.
Thanks, Pam.
Second it.
Thanks, Heidi. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
F is, or E is an agreement with Syracuse University, and that is for students to come in to do field work as presented.
Okay. Is there a motion for E, as presented?
Move the motion.
Thank you, Pam. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And F is for the board to allow the district to accept digital payments as presented.
Okay, is there a motion for F?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And G is for the board to accept a single audit report as of June of 2022 with no findings, as presented.
Okay, is there a motion for G?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Dave. Second?
I'll second.
Tom, any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you, Nancy. Maura, do you have anything for us this evening?
Hello, everybody. So we have the winter sports wrapping up between the high school and the, middle school, and the spring sports will be beginning soon. The high school had their winter semi-formal January 28th, and it was a great time. Everybody enjoyed it. As Dr. Calvin mentioned earlier, Cinderella is this weekend, and everyone's been working very hard to prepare for it, and I've heard that it's going to be a wonderful show. And lastly, I would just like to congratulate you, Dr. Calvin, on your new position, and I wish you the best moving forward.
Okay, so items from the board. I don't know if anyone wants to go before
I'll go.
Pam.
Take care of it. I personally am so looking forward to the musical. Daughter and I are going on Saturday. Our theater department is just fabulous. Year after year, the talent that's in our children is just unbelievable. They're just fantastic. So I've enjoyed many, many musicals, and I look forward to this one. I've been asked by a couple of teachers and other faculty members and the staff about visiting the buildings. I know the board does have a visitation committee, but I do believe if a teacher has invited a board member in, we can make arrangements with the principal, like to their class, not through the whole building. According to our policies, I believe that's, if a teacher spoke with a principal about a visitation to a classroom.
They can go, board members can always go to visit a room, but typically the way it's done is the request comes to the superintendent's office. We let all the board members know who, what, where, and how, and then people that want to go. And, I usually meet them at the office, and then people kind of go from there. That's usually the way that we've done it since I've been here.
Well, according to our policy number 3210, visitors required to report to the main office upon entering the building. Visitations to classrooms for any purpose require permission in advance from the building principal in order to allow teachers the opportunity to arrange their schedules to accommodate such requests. I am not requesting to go to the classroom. I've had classroom teachers request, can you come to the classroom and see what we do? We'd like to show you what we do. It goes on to say, when individual board members visits the school, they must abide by the regulations and procedures developed by the administration regarding school visits. It goes on to talk about student visitors, which doesn't pertain to us. But according to our policy, the teachers could, or I could arrange it with the building principals. So just curious
Yeah, I
about
mean,
that.
Been our practice
I
plan.
think, yeah, I mean, I think I think it depends. So like, I mean, I'm just realizing I like volunteered at the holiday party in my son's classroom, but that wasn't really like visiting a classroom. But I do think if teachers are reaching out to specific board members to visit, like I do think that should be open to everybody to go and visit as
I'm
well.
sure that it would be, and I
So-
bet you they would extend that invitation. So any
Right, and
teachers
so-
that are listening will understand that.
Right, and so we do also have the visitation committee, which actually we were just speaking about last week, about, to follow up, actually on a previous discussion about visiting like the high school during the day, for example. So, yeah, I guess I would be a little, I don't know. I would be a little bit uncomfortable procedurally if somebody reached out to me specifically and asked to come visit a classroom. Like, I would forward that to everybody else to make sure like the whole board knew about it.
I can't forward something that was verbally said to
Right,
me.
right.
And these are generally teachers that have been in our district for a while, and historically in the past, board members would visit buildings, and they would be asked to come to a classroom to see what that classroom was doing that day. So I think that they're just reflecting on what happened in the past.
Right,
But
and so maybe if they're going to do that, like just email it to, this
And
way
it would
we
be to
can
the whole
forward
board.
something to,
Yes.
and actually have it be like the visitate, with this way it's a public, I mean, it's two things. One is about like, well, it's a few things, but one is about like numbers of board members being together in a place. Is one of the challenges that we would have, which at one point it becomes like a public meeting that if we were, depending on what we're discussing. But I think it's also like, and maybe this is the political scientist in me, but being on the board can be seen as kind of a political position, and I would not want to see like factionalism develop or some people getting information that other people are not getting. And so like from an institutional perspective, and again, political scientist, but I think it's important that it's, if it's available to one, it should be available to everyone within the limits of not violating public meeting law.
So the teacher could invite every one of us a different day of the week if they wanted to show us something in the classroom. I mean, they want to share what's going on. They want us to see it firsthand. And it just seems strange that you can't visit.
There's never, ever been a request from a board member about visiting a classroom, and we did not allow for that. We have always made a way for the board members to do that. Whenever there's been a request that's come up over the last 2.5 years, we've made that happen. Generally speaking, though, it's done, there's a protocol that we have followed, and I've never known that there's been a problem with the protocol. The protocol is generally the board member, whoever wants to go in who's received an invitation, they reach out to the superintendent's office. We arrange for time. We share that, hey, there's been a request for a visitation. That information is shared with all of the board members. Whoever wants to come, we've arranged for time so that there isn't a problem with meeting people going too many board members at a time, which could turn into a board meeting. We have altered this. Okay, we can do a time at 9, and we can do a time at 10, time at 11, so that way people can get in and get out. But, to make sure that things are done in the right way with the right decorum and procedurally so that, everybody can get in and see what's going on, we've always allowed for that, and we would be willing to do that with no difficulty. There is never a time that we've said that we don't want people to go in to see classrooms.
I'm not
We
saying that, and I did not mean to imply that in any way, shape, or form. I was just simply trying to clarify how do we go about when I've been asked. So this is what we do. That's all I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, so please, if it's verbally especially.
Yes, I
pass
will
it
have
along
them put
so
it
we
in
can
writing
organize
to
it.
all of us.
Yeah.
Thank you. Also, with winter break coming right up, I need everybody to relax, enjoy, refresh, and recharge. Come back, push through to March, because there's another break in March.
Is there?
Isn't it? Or April, sorry.
Oh, is
Push
it April
through
this
March to get to April, sorry.
I don't
Push
get any of
through
these
the
breaks,
March.
our schedules don't mesh, so it's like, wait, I need more childcare?
That's why I have push through March. March can be long because February is not. So we'll deal with that. And certainly, as always, there's much appreciation given to all that work, not only those directly with the students in our buildings, but all the folks that make our buildings work for our students. Thank you for showing up every day. All of you are very much appreciated. Enjoy the break. It's well-deserved.
So on that note, we have a board meeting scheduled for winter break, which I realize some of us are still working that week, but others are not. And so I had just given a heads up to the board members by email last night saying that today during items from the board, I was going to propose either canceling our next meeting or postponing it or possibly maybe moving it up a little bit given this deadline of March 1st. Just because I realize for a lot of teachers, for administrators, we have people who come to our meeting each week. They probably would not necessarily want to have to, school breaks are one of the few times that they can also take breaks. And I know that some of our board members are also not going to be here. I do believe we would still have quorum, but I know that people have planned trips for that week. So, I think given the decision that we have to make or that we should discuss about the tax exemption for seniors and maybe some of these other board items, we should just move the meeting up or back one way or the other. Well, you're right. Yes. Thank you, Pam. If we had a workshop, that also has to be open to the public, correct? Okay. And so we can't do that online anymore. We have to do it face to face.
It's a person.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in person.
Okay. All right, so thoughts?
Workshops.
Maura?
Does it have to be on a Tuesday? Because you might be able to move it up, just not exactly on a Tuesday. You could do like a Thursday, so it's a little bit later than.
We have one event in Minetto just in Thursday.
Oh, okay.
Just one event
Minetto's-
on Thursday. It's their Minetto dinner dance thing.
Okay.
Other than that,
Good idea. It's the Minetto dinner dance. I don't know if that.
Thursday.
That's next Thursday, the 16th. I have a meeting at 6:30 that night as well, so it would depend on how long our discussion would last. Do we
It's
want to
Valentine's
meet
Day,
on
just-
Valentine's Day?
Just in case anyone actually had romantic plans that evening.
Do I try Monday maybe?
I don't have romantic plans. I just wanted to put that out there in case somebody did.
So we can do maybe Monday, the 13th? Does that work for people?
Would it be at 5 o'clock too?
At 5 o'clock, yeah.
Monday's fine.
I guess my only other, so then the next meeting would be March 7th. I guess, Bob, for personnel matters, could we go from that Monday, the 13th, to Tuesday, the 7th without problem? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, right on.
Okay, so we will move our meeting from Monday, February 21st to, Tuesday, February 21st to Monday, February 13th at 5 PM. Everyone agreed?
Yep.
Okay. Sean, did you say you couldn't make that? Okay, I'll reach out to you by phone just so I can make sure if you have strong opinions on this, we can I'll be able to pass those along. Oswego City's population over age 65 in the 2020 census was 17.3%. The Oswego County is 17.5%. So I think it's probably pretty safe. It's about the same. And in terms of that tax exemption, it's specifically for, to up the maximum income for people making 50,000, for seniors making 50,000, would be able to get their exemption. Nancy, is the volunteer firefighter one built into that as well? Okay, so we don't do that one. Okay, well, so maybe we should be prepared to discuss that one as well, if anyone, like.
I would have to research that one, Lisa, I'm sorry. That one
We don't
was-
already do it.
Right.
Yeah.
That one was brought a while ago, and at the time, there was no way to figure out, because that one's based on income as well, and there was no way to figure out what the cost would be to the district. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. So just for people online who couldn't hear, that when that was brought forward, there was no way to figure out, it's income-based and what the cost would be to the district. So, okay, we'll stick with the tax exemption for seniors, or tax reduction for seniors by now. And if we do vote on that February 13th, that would give enough time, hopefully, to get the information out that people would know that they have to apply for it if we approve it. Correct? Okay. All right. Are there any other items from the board? All right. So I do believe we have a need to move for executive session tonight for, do you have it highlighted, personnel? Okay.
I have a bunch of things.
All right.
We would need an executive to discuss information about a current or future investigation or prosecution of a criminal offense that obstructs effective law enforcement if revealed, details of proposed current or pending litigation, collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law, and then details of medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person and/or corporation.
Okay. So is there a motion to move to executive session? Oh, will there be a need for a vote?
No.
No. Thank you, Jim. Is there a motion to move to executive? Jim, the second? Thank you, Pam. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. 6:22.